Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you. It is St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day. Now you would think, wouldn't you, that my hardcore Protestant little self would not really be into saints. And it's pretty common that saint and hagiography are kind of divided between your Anglo-Catholics and your Roman Catholics have a lot of your saints, and the Protestants are like, we don't need no saints. We got Jesus. And in good Episcopal fashion, I land right here. The point of saints is not that we have someone to intercess on our behalf in the heavens above. You know, if you lose something, you need to go bury. Is it St. Joseph? St. Joseph is who we bury? St. Anthony. St. Joseph is backwards when you want to sell your house. Is that the one? See, all my good recovering Roman Catholics in here, they're like, oh, we know. You want to sell your house? I know which saint. Okay. So, but we have all these things, right? That the idea that these saints who are patron saints of things will intercess on our behalf. And the Protestants are like, what? Mm-mm. And the Roman Catholics are like, all I'm saying is my house sold in 2 days. So, y'all be you. But really, the point of saints is not so much that we have someone to intercess on our behalf, but that we have an example of what it means to be Christian and human. That is the power of the saints. And that's why I absolutely love the saints. Plus, also, I'm a history nerd, and if you've ever read a hagiography, it's amazing. Because here's how you become a saint, right? You got to die first. Step one. So, I mean, don't go rushing into the whole saint thing. But, and then you need 3 miracles. You need 3 miracles. Now, the definition of miracle can be somewhat broad. In fact, there is literally a saint who one of his miracles is he was presiding at the Eucharist, and I really should remember who this saint is, but I don't. And he picks up the chalice to drink out of the chalice, and there's a spider in the chalice. And being a good clergy person, he drinks it anyway. Yeah. But, miracle of miracles, he gags. And the spider is ejected from him, minus that sanctified wine. Saint. I mean, that was one of the 3. I mean, you got to get 3. But sometimes you got to work kind of hard to get 3. So St. Patrick, I absolutely love the story of St. Patrick. And there are lots and lots of stories. So let's just do a brief rundown on Patrick. So Patrick was not Irish. Patrick was not, I know, right? Patrick was not Irish. Patrick, probably 5th century, we think. Now, when you get into the Middle Ages, especially the early Middle Ages, you know, it gets a little bit titchy on, exact dates and whatnot. But we can all agree, 5th century, because, I mean, that gives us a broad window here. So 5th century missionary. But he was not particularly religious as a child. He grew up in what we think was probably a somewhat religious home, but he was not a believer. In Britain, he was British. And I don't know what you all know about the British and the Irish, but, I mean, it's not as bad as the Scottish and the British, but Scottish and English. Okay, anyway, so he's out working one day when he's 16, and he gets kidnapped by some Irish pirates. And they speared him off to Ireland. And he is in Ireland for about 6 years, we think. And, doing slave stuff. And then he escapes. And he does eventually escape, and he eventually, like 200 miles away, so he does some pretty good escaping here. Eventually he finds a port, and he takes a boat back home. But he's in Ireland about 6 years. So he's very happy to be home. I mean, because it's England. Hello. So he's happy to be home, away from the crazy Irish who kidnapped him. But then, and in his time in Ireland, which is not a religious, Christianity has not really appeared in Ireland yet. And the definition of Christianity in any of Great Britain is kind of watery, if you will. But he does get back. And in his time in Ireland, he really begins to depend on God. And so when he goes back, he does become a cleric. And at that time, he eventually realizes that he needs to go back to Ireland to spread the faith. And that, I think, is the power of Patrick. The power of Patrick is that he ends up where he never wanted to go. This was not his plan when he was a 16-year-old out working. Not the plan to go to Ireland. Not the plan to get kidnapped. Not the plan to go to Ireland. And certainly never, because he's not religious, remember, never to be a bishop and to be a missionary. In fact, we think he was probably the first bishop, actually, really, truly, in Ireland. Because he really goes and he all of Ireland. And there's a good theory that he got rid of the snakes, but prehistoric evidence shows that there were never snakes in Ireland, so good job getting rid of what was never there. Miracle. I told you, it gets kind of watery sometimes. But what I really want us to hang our hat on with Patrick is what you and I are called to. And that is not worrying about snakes. That's not worrying about green beer, which apparently doesn't make you as hungover. I don't know. It sounds disgusting. Not any of that stuff. But the idea that we bloom where we're planted. Even if it's not where we want it to be. Even if it's not where we plan to be. Even if it's not what we designed or hoped for or dreamed for or planned for. But to realize that in that place where we are is where we are called to serve God. That is the beauty of Patrick. Not his perfection, not his incredibly heretical definition of the Trinitarian theology. Do not come to me like, well, it's kind of like a shamrock. No, it's not. That's heresy, people. It is not. And if you follow our Facebook page, at some point I will post a video that I absolutely love that I do every single St. Patrick's Day about St. Patrick's heresy. Anyway, but it's really, the really powerful thing here for us is, because I'm just going to ask you all a question, and maybe I'm only speaking for myself. Who here is where they planned to be when they were 16? No. Absolutely not. This is not what I planned for when I was 16. If I went back and told 16-year-old me that I would be like all crippled up in the suburbs as a priest and a school counselor, I'd be like, Now, my plan when I was 16 was to travel the world as a victim advocate lawyer. That was my plan. Never married, never had kids, and probably have a really big dog that weighed more than me. I do have a big dog. He does not weigh more than me, however. Next dog is going to be huge. No, but none of us are where we ever planned to be, are we? And yet, God calls us to where we are, how we are, who we are. And sometimes that's not where we want to be. And yet, the power of this saint is that that's where we are called to be. And so today, in between your whiskey or your green beer, I'm going to go more whiskey than green beer, or whatever it is you do, together? Ew. Who let him in? Ew. It is. We do have an open door policy, and this is what happens when you have an open door policy. You got someone who's like, green beer and whiskey, yeah. No. But I want us to take a moment to ask, are we where we plan to be? Probably not. But are we where we are called to be? Absolutely. And in where we are called to be, we will find God.
Receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.